A little over a year ago, I had a terrible breakup with the girl I hoped to be marrying. Turns out she found a more interesting guy and dumped me. The breakup took me by surprise, and I had a very hard time accepting it. I can't count the number of texts I sent her begging to take me back. I went through the usual routine of listening to sad music and crying like a teenage girl. When I got tired of that, I moved on to anger and so forth. 8 months went by, and one day I realized that I couldn't recall the last time I thought about her. I assumed that I was done grieving, and that meant only one thing. It was time to return to the dating market. To my shock, it didn't take long. I'd only been looking for only a few days when I noticed this cute girl at Starbucks. She was sitting alone, and I asked to join her. Things went from there, and when I left, I had an upcoming dinner date and a massive boost of confidence. Unfortunately, that girl would cancel on me at the last second. I realized that I may be pushing things too hard, and decided to let it happen naturally, and I focused on my work instead. Maybe a month later, a girl I worked with asked me out, and I agreed. She was cute, around my age and highly intelligent, all things which made her too good for me, but I accepted anyway. This date would bloom into an actual relationship once we started spending the weekends at one another's apartments. I started to believe that we may have a future together. I could finally change my status to in a relationship on Facebook. But little did I know, this seemingly minor little detail would open a gigantic box of trouble that lasts to this very day. Not long after I updated my page, I got a message I never expected to see. It was my ex. I had to read it several times just to make sure I wasn't seeing things. This made no sense. The two of us had dated over 2 years when she had told me that she'd fallen in love with another guy. I thought her relationship was solid, but I came to find out that she'd had one foot out the door. For a while I just heard she was planning on marrying the guy she dumped me for, but now here she is asking me to take her back. The situation left me in a bit of a moral quandary. The answer should have been simple, but her message had unearthed some feelings that I thought were dead and buried forever. A part of me wanted to do it, but after an honest evaluation of my situation as it pertained to love and the like, I knew I couldn't. Another person's feelings were at stake, and she'd done nothing to deserve this type of treatment. I gave the ex a firm no and left it at that. I assumed that she'd move it on to another man, and I'd be free to live as I would. That may have been the stupidest assumption I'd ever made. Less than a week later, a second message arrived. This was not kind and loving. Like the first, she was mad. The very idea that I wouldn't take her back must have never entered her mind. And this is when I made the connection between the relationship update and her offer to get back together. This made no so much easier to say. I have no idea what occurred between her and her fiancé, and I don't care. I was convinced that had I not posted that I had a new girlfriend, she would have never have contacted me. That type of vindictiveness disgusts me and leaves me relieved. I got away from her when I did. I acted as if though I never received her message. Attention was obviously what she was after, and I wasn't going to give it to her. I probably shouldn't have answered the first. In retrospect, I was still hoping that she'd eventually move on. But when I noticed the key scratches down both sides of my car, I was done playing games. I immediately called the cops and filed a report. There was nothing they could do without proof, which I knew I simply wanted to establish a pattern if the harassment continued. I didn't have long to wait. My girlfriend, who I'll call Bobby, had a rock thrown through her windshield. Another report was made. I was afraid that this would be the point at which Bobby would nope out, but she stuck by me to this day. What had happened so far would prove to be nothing compared to her most recent tantrum. Friday of last week, Bobby and I were playing a game online when a loud pounding came from the front door. I ran to answer it. What met me there was a group of around 10 or 15 heavily armed police officers. It appeared that I had been swatted. To their credit, they were calm and asked for permission to search the apartment. I said yes, and the officer in charge informed me that they had received a call stating that I had Bobby at gunpoint and intended to kill her and myself. That would be hard, since I don't even own a gun. The officers finished their search quickly, and I told them who I believed had made the call. They took down all the information and went on their way. To date, I haven't heard anything about the investigation, if they can prove that she was behind the call. She's getting a legal beatdown. A lot of young people think it's no big deal. I assure you, getting 10 assault rifles pointed in your face is not funny. People have died because of swatting, and knowing how close I was to dying makes me violently ill for real, and until we get any news from the cops, I can't tell you all anything else. I hope she gets punished and never bothers me again, and I'll post any important changes to the case if or when there are any.